Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to continue our scholarly examination of War Against Crime, the 1940s EC comic. We start off with a nice Johnny Craig cover. Not as nice as he became. Remember, this is a very young Johnny Craig, before he became the legendary Johnny Craig. And this illustrates the first story in the comic. And this first story is, it's about Hank Two-Gun Corley. And I don't know why he's usually drawn with red hair, but he has brown hair here. But this is art by Lee Ames, who we saw in the first issue. This guy's pretty good. I mean, not great, but he tells the story okay. So I guess Hank grew up with his brother, Jim, and they were like young teenage slum dwellers who learned crime pretty early when they were kids. That's a nice panel. So they grow older, they become men, and they're still committing crimes. His brother gets shot during a robbery, and the judge actually lets him go. He says, I think you've learned your lesson that you can't win against the forces of law and order. Your brother's death should prove that. And he's thinking to himself, what a boob this guy is. Think I'm going to let some cops get away with this? So he begins his one-man war on law and order. And he's not too bright, apparently, but he's so savage. He succeeds. He gets a lot of luck. One of the trucks he's robbing, the guy actually says, I'll be your partner. You can have everything in the truck. Let's split it. I'm just the truck driver. I don't care. So they become partners. His name's Rudy Derringer. So they start this really successful crime spree. It seems like they've got a guardian devil looking after him because the cops never show up at their crimes. They start robbing cars. They show one daring escape here where a cop shows up while he's robbing a jewelry store after hours. And he wings the cop. But all these other cops are running in, and the elevator's not working. So he shoots open the door, shimmies down the elevator cable, and comes out from the basement. That's a nice panel there, like that. So at one point, they're hanging out in Ossining, New York, because there's so much heat on them in New York City. Rudy's from Ossining. It's kind of a dinky town up north, upstate. And they meet this hot broad. She agrees to come with them to another club, but she recognizes them. And they shut her up. This is a crazy panel. He's shooting her right in the head, but then there's just 3 lines coming from the back of her head. So I don't know if that was censored, or it's just a really weird little panel, the way he's shooting her temple, her forehead, and nothing's really seems to be happening. So they go back to New York City because now they're too hot in Ossining, and they kind of have this partner, this woman who works at a factory. She's a cashier, so I guess she gives them information. And it sounds like she's kind of in love with one of them, at least. Because she hangs out with them. She's like their pal. The cops stop him one day. And he shoots one of them. And then to get the other cops off his tail, he pushes her out. He figures they'll have to stop so they don't run her over. So when the cops take her down to the station, she pretends that she swears that she's never seen Hank before. But the cops don't really believe her, so they put a tail on her. And she leads the cops right back to Hank and Rudy's hideout in mid-Manhattan. The cops surround the place. They're throwing tear gas into the room. And they finally surrender. When the cops come in, though, and they're frisking him, Hank shoots one more. He says, you missed this gun. They don't call me Two-Gun Corley for nothing. That's the second time people forgot he's called Two-Gun Corley. And he kills the cop. Another cop just bashes his head in. You dirty, sniveling rat, you killed him. So, the judge sends him away for, sends him to the electric chair, basically. And he's such a glory hound. He's kind of happy his last few days on Earth, just reading the newspapers. And comparing his write-ups to Rudy's. He's like, Rudy got it last night, but I'm getting way bigger write-ups than he did. My big brother would be proud of his punk kid brother now. And he gets the electric chair. We got a letter page. And this one the art is so odd. It almost looks like an underground comic artist. It's called The Crystal Ball Killer. And the art is by Stan Ash. And I never heard of this guy. I'm looking forward to seeing more of his work, though. I find it strangely appealing. So I guess we start with Mary Winnick. She lived in the Polish part of Chicago, Little Poland. And she's married to this guy who beats the crap out of her all the time. Everyone in the neighborhood knows. They can always hear him beating on her loudly. Everyone's so rounded in this. I like this pedestrian, just this big fat round guy. And throughout this comic, they have these weird color backgrounds, like a little rainbow effect. But Mary, though, is kind of like a neighborhood mystic. You know, she does fortunes and stuff. And this other lady, one lady says, poor Mary, her husband is such a brute. The other lady says, I'm not sorry for her. One day Mary's going to prophesy something against him. So Mary has this reputation that she can predict, if she prophesies that your dog will die in 3 days, it always happens. And they give some examples of it. And yes, right as rain. Every time she tells someone, your cat's going to die in 2 days, the cat dies in 2 days. So one day she goes to the undertaker and she says, I'd like to buy a coffin. And the guy says, oh, when did he pass away, ma'am? I'm sorry about this. She's like, oh, he's still alive, but he's going to die 10 days from now. That's why I want the coffin delivered then. So 10 days later, she's serving dinner to her husband. He says, hey, the food tastes funny tonight. And then he clutches at his throat. It's on fire. And she tells him that she put arsenic in his dinner. And she says, you'll never beat me again. She hits him on the head with a pot. And he falls out the window. This art is almost like Trina Robbins, but I like it a lot more. I like that panel there. So at the funeral, some guy says, hey, that's a pretty good-looking widow. And also, she got some insurance money, so she's very eligible. And her new husband doesn't beat her. He actually defends her. Because some neighborhood people are just like, my dog died. I blame you. Once again, look at this crazy color scheme behind there. It's crazy. Here, too. But one day, Mary sees her new husband checking out this hot blonde. Look at the face on her. That's so cool looking. And weird. Just weird cartooning. And so Mary's really jealous. And she says, why should I be jealous of a dead man? You won't be alive 1 week from now. And he's like, no, Mary, don't say that. So basically, the husband takes off. He figures, I'm just going to check out of town, so I won't be here on that 7th day. And so we see the guy in a train speeding away from the city. And the guy's like, hey, it's 7 days since Mary's prophecy. I'm still alive. I got nothing to be afraid of. When I go back, Mary and I will laugh over it together. So his wife basically threatened his life. And he's just like, oh, I'll get back with her. And, of course, he reaches in his bag and says, Mary's a good woman. She even made me these sandwiches for my trip. Takes a bite, and he starts running through the train. My throat's on fire. And he's in such a panic that he runs in between the cars and falls, and he's crushed under the train wheels. It'd be luck if there's enough of them left worth burying, says the train conductor. So then Mary marries a third man, and she loved him very much, almost too much. So he has these 2 dogs that he loves. And in her thought balloon, she's saying, those dogs, Mike's always playing with them. It's their fault that he doesn't pay more attention to me. So he comes home that evening. He's like, where are the dogs? She's like, they died this afternoon. And he's like, you killed them. I heard about your predictions. I know what they say about you. Another crazy color thing. Here too. He slaps her, says, you murderess, I'll teach you a lesson. So Mary, that's it for Mary, for her love for him. She's gonna kill him. So to avert suspicion, Mary administers the poison very slowly to this guy. So every day he's just looking worse and worse. He goes to visit his brother, and his brother's like, dude, you got to leave that woman. She's doing something to you. You don't look like yourself. So the brother notifies the police. The next day, he's lying in bed, and Mary's feeding him dinner. And she's saying, I know you feel weak, but you must eat, dear, just a little. And the police barge in, don't touch that food. And she tries to drop it out the window. And they say, And they test it. And they find arsenic in it. They dig up her ex-husbands, find arsenic in them too. And the judge sentences her to life imprisonment. And she says, I predicted I never would go to the gallows. I was right. But she's got to spend the rest of her life in jail. Man, this artist, I want to see more of this guy, Stan Ash. Just what a goon. He draws people. Just really primitive. But I don't know why I kind of like it. We got a little short story for the postal regulations. America's first crime, a true history crime. So this is about Benedict Arnold. And it's so obvious after like the first 3 panels, even if you barely know history. But they're trying to make it a secret. Like they just keep calling him Ben the whole time. And this whole story of Benedict Arnold, how, he was a very capable general. But he always felt passed over. Even though his buddy George Washington was like writing him reassuring notes and saying, hey, you got a raw deal there, but I'm sure next time I'll get Congress to make you a bigwig general too. I guess it's called a major general. That's like the big time general. And then they don't say what they are, but I guess he has charges of a minor degree brought against him in 1799. I don't know why they won't tell us. I'm curious. And he goes through 2 trials. He's acquitted, but publicly reprimanded by Washington. So basically his reputation is totally ruined. So he says, fuck this. I'm going to sell out to the British. Sell them some information. So this is really confusing. Just this elaborate way he has to connect with the British with all these false names and stuff, and they have to meet in certain places. So I won't bore you with it, because I was bored. But he hooks up with the British guy, and then it's on this British ship. But the Americans spot him, and they start firing on the ship. So Benedict Arnold, he's got this little, I'm sorry, the British guy. He says, here, dress up in my buddy's clothing. You can't be wearing that uniform around here. And he says, Sir Henry warned me against taking any papers or disguising myself, because then you could be hanged for a spy. That's a major thing. And basically they find out that this guy, they find out he's a spy. He kind of admits it. And he also has this letter from Benedict Arnold, which is kind of like a pass. So they're like, why the hell is Benedict Arnold writing this spy a pass? So the jig is up. And so, basically, Benedict Arnold defects to the British Army. And it seems like he does pretty well for himself. He becomes a brigadier general to start. General Washington promises his wife and child will not be molested, so they're put on a ship to England to join him. But I guess for the rest of his life, people spurned his friendship and turned away when he appeared because he was a traitor. And he died a poor, miserable wretch. You know, I forgot to mention, this is drawn by Frank Boal and Leonard Starr. Frank Boal did, I don't know, thousands of comics pages for like Dell and Gold Key and a lot of companies. And Leonard Starr did comic strips. I think he did Little Orphan Annie in the 70s or 80s. I don't know. I could be right about that. But he did a lot of comic strips. He was a journeyman. This next one's an odd one. The Saga of Spotlight John. And basically, it's about this guy, John, who was more of an impersonator of a criminal than a criminal. And so John rides into town in it's the Old West. And he's totally showing off. He buys everyone in the bar a drink. Oops, sorry, I forgot again. This is Last Stories by Graham Ingalls. So we get to see more proto Graham Ingalls before he became the old witch, haunt of fear Graham Ingalls. So the guys are talking about how there's a big bank robbery in the next town over. And the guy says, yeah, I hear they got away with a bunch of bags of gold coins. And John takes a coin out of his pocket and says, a gold coin? You mean like this one? And then later on, talking about how Lightning Bill Sutter, one of the fastest gun hands around, but some other guy outdrew him and killed him. And the guy says, I'll miss him and his calico bandana. Calico bandana? Did he carry a one like this? So I guess he reads the paper all the time, John. And he finds out about these crimes, and then he buys certain things so he can pretend that he was responsible for that. So, for example, he reads about a stagecoach robbed by a guy in a black shirt. So he buys a black shirt and walks around town, letting everyone think that he's the guy who robbed that stagecoach. So he goes into this bar, and he asks for a cigar. And Scar Meldrum is there. Scar is the fastest gun in the West. He's really fast. And he says, look at that guy trying to pass himself off as that stagecoach robber. He shoots the cigar out of his mouth. He introduces himself. He says, you must be Spotlight John. Says, you're too good to be wasting your time here. Join up with me and my boys. And, of course, he starts stuttering. But I'm satisfied here. You see, I'm not. Says, I know you ain't no real outlaw. You're just a faker. But he's basically going to force him to join his gang. Says, I'm going to make you into a sure enough crook. So basically, he just becomes like the butler there. He's got to clean dishes, make food for the gang, and constantly get insulted and abused by Scar Meldrum. It's almost like he has him around just to pick on him and abuse him. Because, I mean, this guy's a total faker. He's a total coward. He's not a real criminal. But John vows to get revenge one day. So one day the Meldrum gang runs into a bunch of vigilantes. And the vigilantes are just picking them off. And Scar runs away to the horses. And he gets on the last horse, since all the other horses were shot. And John pulls out his .45s, and he kills Scar Meldrum. But his plan kind of worked, because his reputation, he always wanted the spotlight, but now in his death, everyone's like, man, what a killer that guy was. He beat Scar Meldrum in a gunfight. He's the only one of the Meldrum gang the vigilantes couldn't kill with lead. But then the record set straight, because during the what do they call that? The coroner, whatever, the autopsy. He says, actually, he didn't kill Meldrum. This bullet didn't come from his guns. He missed. So he missed Meldrum from this close. And I guess the vigilante shot him. Poor Spotlight. He wanted to be tough, so the spotlight would be on him. Yeah, and all this time, he was only a clown. That's kind of sad. So we got a second letters page. And that's it for War Against Crime #2. I kind of like how they do different eras of crime. So it's not just like typical, 40s gangster movies. It's, they got a Western in here. And they got a Benedict Arnold story. Because there was crimes committed throughout history, not just the 30s and 40s. But I don't know if that'll continue. I guess we'll find out next time when we look at #3. So I hope you enjoyed looking at this. Kind of goofy. Hoping they start improving soon and become more like the ECs that we know and love. And it is interesting watching these artists progress. And also discovering crazy artists like Stan Ash. It's spelled A-S-C-H, by the way, his last name, if you're interested in tracking him down. I know I am, because he's goofy. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. And hopefully I'll see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.